Hello everyone, welcome into Fatty's Feast, where we make the best food you'll ever eat without leaving your backyard. My name is Josh, and today we're going to be talking about dirty smoke and whether or not it's really that bad for your barbecue. Let's get started. Okay, so just over a year ago, I released a video on offset smoker fire management, specifically fire management on smaller smokers like this guy right here, the Old Country Brazos. And a lot of you are actually part of this channel today because of that video, so I really appreciate it. A lot of you said you found it very, very helpful, and it's challenging to learn how to use a smaller offset smoker like this guy, because the smaller the smoker, the more difficult it is to maintain and control temperatures and fire and all that stuff. So what I really stressed in that video was, if you can't burn and maintain a clean fire as well as maintain consistent temperatures, your barbecue is going to taste like shit. But even though most of the feedback from that video was extremely positive, there were still those guys in the comment section. You know, those guys. What are you talking about? Dirty smoke is great. The more smoke, the better is what I say. Didn't know smoking meant you didn't want smoke. I've been smoking 700 pounds of brisket a day for 50 years using pallets and pressure-treated wood. You millennials don't know shit about barbecue. Yeah, you know, those guys. So that's why I'm making this video today, to touch on some of those comments and disagreements about dirty smoke, and is it really that bad? Now, starting off, I think there were a few reasons for some of those comments that were mostly misconceptions. The first reason was, I don't think I personally did a good enough job explaining what I meant by dirty smoke. I think a lot of people took me saying dirty smoke as any smoke whatsoever, and that you didn't want any smoke in barbecue, and that's not what I meant at all. The second thing is, I think there is a general misunderstanding of what dirty smoke is. Not only what it looks like, but more importantly, what it tastes like on your food if you have it enough. And lastly, I think it's because our good friend Jeremy Yoder here on YouTube of Mad Scientist Barbecue released a video shortly after mine discussing dirty smoke and how it can be beneficial in some circumstances. Note the key word there, some circumstances. Not all the time, but sometimes. And to be honest, I don't disagree with him at all. I actually put a link to that video in the description so you can check it out yourself. It's very, very informative. So that being said, I want to get into my 3 classifications of smoke, which is not science or anything like that. It's just the things I've come up with. We're going to talk about what they look like, how you get them, and the pros and cons of each. So my 3 classifications of smoke are dirty, clean, and good or normal. Yeah, I know. Like I said, not rocket science. So first, we'll start with what's behind me right now. This is our clean smoke. I'm not sure what you can see on camera, but all I see is mostly heat with a little bit of smoke coming out. So anything that's just mostly heat signatures coming up, or a little bit of wispy, a little white, maybe more so blue most of the time, that's your clean smoke. So clean smoke is all around a good sign. If you're getting clean smoke, you're burning a nice clean fire, you got good airflow, your fire can breathe. But the problem is, if you're burning clean smoke, especially on a smoker like this, a smaller smoker, it's probably because you're cooking at higher temperatures. If you're using a bigger smoker, typically around 250 and up, you're gonna have an easier time getting clean smoke because you have a bigger fire. But with a firebox like this, where we're kind of limited, it's a little harder to get if you're burning at lower temperatures. So if I look at my temperature gauge right now, up at the top here, I'm burning at just under 350 degrees. If I were at grate level, it'd probably be around 300. So during your low and slow cooks, when you're cooking at 225 to 250, you're gonna have a harder time getting this type of smoke. Now, the pros of having clean smoke is the fact that, like I said, you're doing a good job with your fire, and you're not gonna have an overwhelming dirty smoke taste at the end of your cook. Now, the cons are, obviously, it's going to be more difficult to get this smoke, and you need to be cooking at higher temperatures to just naturally have it happen. So unless you're cooking hot and fast, it's going to be kind of tough. But also, because there's not a lot of smoke, clean smoke isn't going to give you a really pronounced smoke flavor if that's what you're looking for. But at the end of the day, if you're cooking over 275 degrees, like you're finishing something off, or you're trying to get through a stall, clean smoke's going to be a great sign that you're doing everything right. But oh my God, what just happened here? This is our next classification of smoke, which is our dirty smoke. This is bad smoke. We don't want this, basically ever. So as we look at this smoke, what we can see, it's very white. There's not a lot of airflow going through the stack like we saw with our clean smoke. And it's just very thick, and I know you can't smell it, but to me it smells bad. It smells acrid. It's burning my eyes. I don't like being around this smoke. Now, there's a few reasons you're gonna get this type of smoke. The first being you don't have good airflow in your fire. So maybe you have your dampers closed too much, or you have your firebox overloaded. That's going to restrict your fire from breathing, therefore causing this dirty smoke. Now keep in mind, smoke is a product of incomplete combustion, right? So if you don't have a good fire burning, you're gonna get shit smoke like this. The other reason you might be getting this is you're burning wood that's too wet. Remember, we want about 20% moisture content or less when we're using wood to smoke. If it's anything higher than that, it's gonna do this and just smolder and not burn as well. Now, you could warm up your wood on the firebox. That's a great, helpful tip. But if it's really, really wet wood, that's not gonna really help much. And also note that this smoke doesn't need to be white. This could be black smoke, this could be green, it could be whatever color it is. If it's different colors, that's typically not good, and it means you have something else going on. You might be burning wood with something in it. You might be burning pine. You might be burning chemicals. I don't know, with used motor oil. It's not good, whatever it is. Now, a lot of people have said they've passed restaurants that have smoke coming out of their smokers like this. And I think there's an explanation for that. Either they just started the smoker or they just added a bunch of wood. But most of the time, it's because they're using smokers as charcoal grills. I think of places I see in Nashville, along the street, they have all these smokers set up, but they're not smoking. They're using them for cooking chicken wings or something along those lines, where they have the cooking chamber loaded with charcoal. And with charcoal, if you're cooking something like chicken, you're gonna be getting this kind of smoke. That's not necessarily bad. That's just what happens. So there's not many pros with dirty smoke, other than if you're cooking something like chicken that you just want to smoke up real quick and you're gonna finish it off in the oven, or you already did it in the oven, you're putting it on the smoker just for like 30 minutes, you can have this kind of smoke. That's gonna add optimal smoke flavor. The problem arises when you smoke something with this kind of smoke for 16 hours. It's not going to taste good. And I know there are a lot of people that said, oh, but you know, I like that extra smoke flavor. I don't really think they have cooked or tried anything with smoke like this for 16 hours. You can over smoke something, as weird as that sounds. And I'm gonna use an analogy here that I really, really enjoy because of the diabetes. Let's say you go to Costco and you pick up one of their chocolate cakes. You know what I'm talking about? I'll put a picture in here so you can, reference this in your head. But if you've had Costco chocolate cake, you're gonna completely agree with me, hopefully. But you pick up one of these cakes, you bring it home, and you're just gonna have a solo night eating cake, right? So you cut yourself off a big slab of this cake and you try it and you go, wow, this is really sweet, it's really moist. I'm gonna down this piece and I'm gonna have another one. But then as you start eating it, you go through bite 3, 4, 5. By the time you get to bite 7, you're like, okay, yeah, I want to throw up. This is a little too rich and a little too sweet for me. So the same thing goes for barbecue. Think of this smoke as sweetness. Let's say you smoke a brisket for 16 hours with this smoke. The first bite of that brisket you take, you might be like, wow, this is really smoky, but not in a bad way. It tastes pretty good. But then as you start going through the piece, you're gonna get to the end and be like, you know what? I think I screwed this thing up. It does not taste that great. And as I said earlier, this smoke is not comfortable to be around. If you're tending to your fire and you get this smoke in your face, your eyes are gonna burn. You're not gonna wanna be in it. You're gonna be turning away because you can't breathe that well. Just imagine that getting on your food. Okay, if you can't tolerate it at the firebox, you're not gonna be able to tolerate it in your food, and you're gonna have a terrible product in the end. Trust me, my first brisket was really, really over smoked. It was not good. I do not recommend doing that. The reason being is I was learning and I had this smoke the majority of the time. But I will say this, dirty smoke, especially on a smoker like this size, is going to happen. It's gonna happen pretty regularly, especially when you are learning. And if you have this kind of smoke for, let's say, 5-10 minutes each hour, you're not gonna ruin your barbecue. It can be tough to maintain those temperatures around 250, 275 degrees when you're struggling with a fire, and especially on a smoker like this, if your coal bed is lacking at all, if your wood's a little bit too wet, if the wind picks up like it is now, or it's winter time, or something just doesn't work in your favor, you might get this dirty smoke, and that's just part of life. As long as you know how to deal with it and get rid of it, that's going to allow you to make good barbecue. So don't freak out if you get this every now and again, especially when you put new pieces of wood on. It's going to happen. It's not that big of a deal. You just don't want it throughout your entire cook. And lastly, we have our good friend, Good Smoke. Yeah, I could have come up with better names, but I'm not that creative. This on camera probably looks very similar to Dirty Smoke, but when I look at it in person here, it's a little bit bluer. It's still smoke, you can still see it, but the biggest difference to me is that it's a little bit more transparent. We have more airflow going through the smoker, and it smells good. It's a nice smoke. You don't want to like die as soon as you're around it. It sort of smells like a fireplace in the middle of winter, except it's August here and 98 degrees, but that's okay. This is the type of smoke that's all around gonna get you good barbecue if you have it consistently throughout the cook. Now, I wouldn't go any darker or dirtier than this personally by choice. Obviously, like I said before, you might have dirty smoke. Actually, you're going to have dirty smoke at some points, but this is a good level to stick at if you want good smoke flavor. This is actually the amount of smoke I would use typically to add smoke flavor in the beginning parts of my cook. So when I'm doing ribs especially, or brisket, I'm keeping my temperatures around the point where I can get this smoke. And you're gonna get this smoke around 225, 250 most of the time. And actually mid-take there, I just created some more dirty smoke. So you can really compare the two. See how they look a little bit different? This is not what you want. You want the other stuff. Now there is somewhat of a fine line between this type of smoke and clean smoke. It's kind of easy to go between the two, but if you're keeping your temperatures around 250 degrees and you're burning a semi-decent fire, this is the kind of smoke you'll get. And how I typically get it, especially during the first parts of my cook, is I will try to slightly overload my firebox so I don't wait for the pieces to burn through, but I kind of might put a piece right on top that maybe hasn't, warmed up a lot, just to get a little bit of extra smoke. And I also tend to pull my dampers back a little bit. So I'm sort of restricting the airflow, but not so much that it's completely smothering my fire and I'm getting bombarded by acrid, disgusting, dirty smoke. The main pro to this is it's gonna give you great smoke flavor. So if you want to have good smoke flavor, focus on the first few hours, usually 3 hours of the cook, to add smoke flavor and get this type of good smoke. It might be difficult at first to go between having clean smoke and completely dirty smoke, but like I said before, once you get it, you're just dialed in and you know what to do. And that's why practicing on your smoker is so important, not cooking food. You want to have practice burns, you want to play with your fire, you want to figure out what your smoker does depending on what you're doing when you're adding wood, opening dampers, closing dampers, opening up the cooking chamber. Figure it out. That's how you're gonna get better. The only real con to this smoke I can think of is that it can be a little difficult to get. So just practice. And right now, as you can tell, maybe not, we're sort of transitioning back to a cleaner smoke. Maybe on camera, because of the lighting, it looks still pretty, not dirty, but good. But from my perspective here, I'm starting to see less and less smoke. So in conclusion, let's just look back at the types of smoke we talked about. We talked about clean smoke, which is basically no smoke, mostly just heat, maybe a little wisp of blue smoke here and there. And that's the type of smoke you get when you're burning at hotter temperatures, and it's gonna lack smoke flavor a little bit, but you'll have a delicious product in the end that's not over smoked. Your dirty smoke is any smoke that's extremely white or multicolored, black, green, purple, whatever the case may be, and that's your smoke that's lacking airflow. It's just puffing out of here. You can't really see it going up. It's just sort of lingering, hanging around. It's acrid. It doesn't smell good. It doesn't feel good when you get it in your face. And most of all, it doesn't taste good. So you want to avoid that smoke as much as possible. Remember, you'll still get it from time to time on small smokers like this, but just avoid using it the entire 16-hour or 12-hour length of your cooks. And lastly, we have our good friend, Good Smoke, which looks really more like clean smoke now. That's a type of smoke that's gonna add delicious smoke flavor to your food. It's pretty easy to get once you get the hang of your smoker, especially if you're smoking around 250, 275. So I hope that clears up some of the confusion from my fire management video. Not all smoke is bad smoke. Smoke can be good. It just depends on how you use it, in what situations, and making sure you don't over smoke your food to taste like a very sweet, very rich Costco chocolate cake. Hashtag diabetes. But I hope this video has been helpful to you all, especially you beginners out there. If you did find value in this video, please smash that like button, get this content out to more people, and leave a comment on your thoughts about smoke. I'd love to hear from you. Do you struggle getting good smoke? Or do you have too much trouble getting dirtier smoke? Whatever the case may be, I want to hear from you. So tell me about your smoking adventures. Over here, I'm going to slap a video in specifically designed for you. You're going to love it, so check it out. And then right here, my smoker, I think I have a how-to playlist. Do I? If not, there's just going to be some other smoker stuff in there. I can't remember my own channel. I suck. But right in the middle, if you love seeing this diabetic, bald, bearded, overall average C- face so much, you can subscribe to see more of me. And until next time, everyone, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, and stay hungry.